The egg industry in the Philippines has greatly contributed to its economy because of the consistent demand in the market and its nutritional value as one of the cheapest sources of animal protein. Gross earnings from chicken eggs increased by 11.03% or 23.12 million pesos in 2006, compared with that of 20.82 million pesos in 2005. Moreover, the price of chicken eggs increased by 7.68% or 70 pesos per kilogram in 2006, compared with that of 65.50 pesos per kilogram in 2005. So these findings indicate that the industry has followed an increasing trend, which have led to the expansion of layer businesses. So figure 1 shows the chicken layer population in the Philippines from 2006 to 2020. In 2006, 21.38 million layers were produced, while 41.20 million layers were produced in 2020. The figure presents an increasing trend, although in 2014, the layer population in the country had decreased by 6.24%, but it increased again in the following years. So based from the Bureau of Agricultural Statistics in 2006, the total number of chicken layers in the country was 22.374 million, and half of the total layer population was concentrated in 9 regions. So these include Calabarzon and Mimaropa with 6.808 million or 30.42%, followed by Central Luzon with 4.384 million or 19.59%. Central Visayas with 2.059 million or 9.20%, Northern Mindanao with 2.053 million or 9.18%, Bicol region with 1.931 million or 8.63%, Southern Mindanao with 1.216 million or 5.4%, Western Visayas with 1.124 million or 5.02%, and Eastern Visayas with 1.123 million or 5.02%. In Ilocos region, 399,862 or 1.87% layers were produced. So in so in 2020, the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA has recorded that the total number of chicken layers in the country was 41.202 million, and half of the total layer population was concentrated in Calabarzon with 14.69 million or 35.66%, and Central Luzon with 8.33 million or 20.23%. In here in Here in Region 1 or Ilocos region, there were 1.25 million or 3.04% layers that were produced. So Figure 3 shows the chicken egg production in the Philippines from 2006 to 2020. In 2006, the country had produced 330,288 tons of eggs, whilst uh, while 605,786 tons of eggs were produced in 2020. It is also similar with Figure 1 as the number of eggs produced in the country had decreased in 2014, but have also returned to its increasing trend in the following years. So in 2006, the country had produced 330,288 tons of chicken eggs, and 70% of the total volume of eggs produced in this year was contributed by Calabarzon with 86,086 tons or 26.06%, followed by Central Luzon with 58,045 tons or 17.57%, Central Visayas with 34,228 tons or 10.36%, Northern Mindanao with 28,371 tons or 8.59%, and the Bicol region with 23,117 tons or 6.99%. Here in Ilocos region, 12,389 tons of eggs or 3.75% were recorded. Oh. So in 2020, Based also from the PSA, the country has produced 605,786 tons of chicken eggs. The top five regions last year were Calabarzon with 184,747 tons, or 30.50%, followed by Central Luzon with 122,267 tons, or 20.18%. Central Visayas with 55,181 tons, or 9.11%. Northern Mindanao with 52,093 tons, or 8.60%. Western Visayas with 37,017 tons, or 6.11%. And here in the Ilocos region, 21,230 tons of or 3.50% of eggs were recorded. So these statistics show that the egg industry here in the Philippines has been expanding successfully over the years as it follows an increasing trend. Uh, and and majority of the layer population and egg production in the Philippines are highly concentrated in Calabarzon and Central Luzon, which indicates that the regions closer to Metro Manila have the advantage in access to sources of production inputs, such as hatcheries, feed mills, and financial institutions. And moreover, these regions cater the eggs supply in the major market centers, which are in uh, Manila. So let's move on to the pointers in starting a poultry farm for table egg production. So we have 7 points. So the first one is the personal qualifications and capabilities. So the racers must be knowledgeable in the processes involved in egg production. A successful egg operation requires the racer to have a background on production and business management. And to efficiently and profitably improve the operation, the racer should continuously evaluate and adopt uh, technological innovations. Next is the availability of resources. Excuse me. The area and capital investments of the farm must be prepared. So the farm of the racer should be established in a zoning approved area. Engaging in an egg farming enterprise must have the capital investments in land, buildings, and equipment, and a substantial operating capital. Three is the supply of good stocks. Know who supply your stocks. Trust well-established and reliable hatcheries, growers, or dealers in buying chicks or ready-to-lay pullets or RTLPs. Four is constant supply of other farm inputs. Farm inputs such as the availability of good quality feeds, feed supplements, biologics, and vaccines should be prepared beforehand. Moreover, a continuous supply of fresh, clean, potable water, electricity, and labor should be provided. X is the market assurance. Check if the demand for eggs and poultry products in the market is capable of sustaining egg production. Six is the site of the farm. The site of the farm should be located in areas not prone to flooding and typhoons. It should be isolated from other farms and human settlement areas and has to be fenced to establish the biosecurity of the farm. Moreover, good transportation facilities such as roads have to be provided for easy delivery of goods to the farm and eggs to the market. And seven, waste management. In line with the site of the farm, it should be distanced from residential areas to minimize problems on pollution due to poultry waste. The racer must be knowledgeable in proper handling and disposal of poultry waste to prevent the spread of diseases. Next one is the selection of stock to raise. So the Philippines commonly raise commercial egg type strains of chicken, like the single comb white leghorns. that produce white-shelled eggs. The brown-shelled eggs or the medium hybrid have also been introduced in the country but have not gained much popularity. So there are other strains that are used here in the country, and uh, these include the Babcock 300, the H&N Supernic, the Highline, the Lawman SL, the High-Sex White, the Starcross or Shaver 2000, and the ISA White. So all of these strains are egg-type chickens, and um, so most of the strains start to lay at 18 weeks, weighs about 1,280 grams to 1,660 grams, and exhibit a 50% production at 20 to 21 weeks. So out of the seven strains, the ISA white starts to lay at 18 weeks, weighs about 1,660 grams, and exhibit a 50% production at 20 weeks, or 141 days. Uh, However, the performance of these strains will vary depending on the environmental and management conditions. So it's still advisable to ask experienced racers on selecting the ideal strain to race. So next is the criteria in selecting egg type strains to race. So we have 3 points. First one is the performance, the availability of stock and reliability of suppliers, and the consumer preference. So the first one is the performance. So you have to note the age at sexual maturity, feed efficiency, and the livability uh, in uh, in selecting the egg type strains to raise. Select the strains which ideally produce a high number of good size quality eggs, and consider the number, size, and quality of eggs produced from a certain amount of input. So number two is the availability of stock and reliability of suppliers. So day-old chicks or RTLPs should be bought from trusted and re, uh, and reliable breeder and hatchery farms or dealers that also deliver the stocks promptly. And third, for the consumer preference, know your target market. If the target market demands for bigger size eggs, then the racer should select strains that produce bigger eggs. And if the market demands for smaller eggs, uh, the racer should also choose strains that produce smaller eggs.
Housing and housing facilities. Next. The average climatic condition in the Philippines is marked by high temperatures and humidity. Adequate housing is required to give comfort to the birds in order for them to develop and lay eggs at their best. The house should be well protected from direct sunlight, strong winds, and extreme temperatures. To minimize humidity and ammonia within the house, it should be adequately aired. Long and narrow houses with windows on all sides are popular in the Philippines because they allow greater ventilation and lighting. To allow for unrestricted air movement, the width of the home should not exceed 20 to 25 feet. In hot conditions, any wider than this will not offer adequate ventilation. The length of the house is frequently determined by the land's topography. Next. And to reduce direct sunlight exposure, the house should be positioned in an east-west orientation. For small poultry housing units, it can have either a gable or a shed-type style roof. The monitor or semi-monitor kinds of roof are preferable for bigger poultry buildings because they provide an exit or heated air, resulting in improved ventilation. To shelter the interior section from rain and direct sunlight, a decent overhang must be installed. Next, the most common roofing materials for large and medium-sized poultry houses are galvanized iron, aluminum, and polyvinyl carbonate sheets. Next, native roofing materials such as cogon and nipa are inexpensive. They are frequently utilized in tiny poultry housing units. However, they are fire risk. Aluminum, PVC, and GI sheets are more durable than nipa and cogon sheets, but they are also more pricey. Next, and for the walls of poultry houses, bamboo, poultry wire, and netting are suitable options. Predators, rats, rodents, and wild birds all pose a threat to the chicken, thus, walls are required. Next, the temperature within the house is also affected by the height of the house, especially during the summer. A stud that is 8 to 10 feet long is used in most open-sided houses. The distance between the roofline and the foundation is measured in studs. High-rise chicken house allow improved ventilation and facilitate the drying of poultry excrement. Furthermore, collecting and disposing of manure is more convenient. And for a better disease control program, a slatted type floor is often utilized. A sturdy and adequate foundation is necessary to support the poultry houses. Concrete posts as well as other termite resistant and long-lasting materials should be used. Next. So these are the example of bamboo slats and plastic slat flooring. Next. The brooding and growing houses. Brooding and growing the chicks in separate houses is a common practice among layers. The chicks are kept in the brooding house until they are around 4 to 6 weeks old, at which point they are moved to a growing house. When using the brood grow housing system, offer a house that's significantly larger than what is required to brood the chicks. If the chicks will be brooded and grown separately, the brooder house should be kept separate from the growth house to ensure adequate sanitation. And when raising egg-type pallets, a slatted floor house was used to promote greater ventilation and prevent droppings from accumulating on the floor. In addition, a slatted floor reduces the danger of intestinal infection. Slat floor materials for expanding houses include bamboo, timber, and molded plastics. Next, brooding and raising egg-type chickens may also be done in litter floor houses. Under Philippine conditions, rice hulls, sawdust, wood shaving, peanut hulls, and any combination of these items are widely utilized litter materials. However, due to issues with the consistency and sufficiency of litter supplies, as well as sanitary issues, this form of housing is not often utilized for rearing egg-type chickens. Next, layers can be maintained in cages, litter floor pens, elevated slat floor pens, slat litter floor pens, or elevated slat litter floor pens. The majority of poultry farmers continue their layers in cages. For greater ventilation, the house is generally open on all sides. Housing refers to the process of moving pellets from the growing house to the laying house immediately before the start of egg production. And pellets should be treated cautiously during housing to avoid internal egg breakage and too much stress while catching and transporting. And 20 to 30 pellets can be kept in a colony cage. As long as the birds are big and adequately ventilated, a less floor space than necessary may be permitted. Next, cages can also design to conserve space, lowering costs and allowing more birds to be housed in a given location. Single deck, double deck, triple deck, or four deck, and flat deck are the different types of cage arrangements. Only in hot climates is a single deck layout viable. Next, space requirements. The space requirements of growing egg-type pellets for floor space, feeder space, and water are increased with age. Older birds require more space than young ones. It is wise to plan for the minimum requirements of the oldest birds that will be kept in the house. increase the amount of space available for eating and drinking as the chicks get older. Next, during the first few days of brooding, use flat containers, inverted chicks box lids, or similar trays as feeders. Next, brooders, brooder heaters. Brooders or heaters are devices that supply the required heat to keep the chicks warm while they are developing. Next, brooder guards. Brooder guards are enclosures that are placed around the brooder heat source to keep the chicks from moving too far away from the heat source. Next, waterers in the form of pans and jars are the most suitable for young chicks. It is preferable to use numerous tiny jar-style waterers than a few large ones. Next, feeders. Flat container feeders with shallow sides are ideal for newborn chicks up to 1 week old. After that, shallow but bigger conventional true feeders, tube feeders, linear feeders, or automated feeders should be given up until the end of the brooding phase. Next, culling and holding equipment. When transporting birds from one house to another or from one brood grow house to the laying house, utilize a holding box or coop to make catching easier. A catching panel can be utilized to corner the birds. A catching hook can be used to catch individual birds. Next, culling is the name given to the process of eliminating undesirable birds or those birds which do not possess the qualities for giving enough benefit in return for their culture. And this is very important aspect of poultry farming because an unculled stock may give a serious setback to the farmer. Culling is a continuous operation throughout the year, and culling is advantageous because it helps in saving the feed, in preventing the spread of disease, and in bringing uniformity of the stock.
Okay, so I'm going to discuss the brooding and growing the pullets. Okay, first, what is brooding? Okay, brooding is the process of providing supplemental heat to the chicks from hatching up to the time that the chicks have grown sufficient feathers and have developed its thermoregulatory system to control their own body temperature. Okay, the other question here is, why do chicks have to be brood? Okay, during their embryonic stage, they are in a state of being poikilotherm or poikilothermic. Okay, poikilothermic meaning they depend on the temperature their environment can provide them. Okay, so in this state does not end on the day they are hatched. In fact, they're still in poikilothermic state until the time they have developed their thermoregulatory system, and this period covers the first 4 to 6 weeks of their life. Okay, vaccinations and debaking are usually done during this period. Yes. Okay, vaccinations like for respiratory diseases, which will be discussed later on by other reporter, and the debaking, which will be discussed a little also on our later discussion. Okay, next we have guides for successful brooding. Number 1, start with healthy and good quality chicks. Of course, right? Of course, you should start with good and quality chicks for you to have a good start for your business. Otherwise, you're just putting your efforts and money in vain, right? Okay, we have here pictures of healthy and unhealthy chicks. On the left side, we have the healthy ones. Dry and fluffy feathers, check. Bright eyes, check. Well-heeled navels, it's not shown here. No deformities. Obviously, they don't have any deformities, okay? And on the right side, yeah, these ones obviously are unhealthy. They have deformities. Okay, provide proper temperature. Okay, this is very important. As I have mentioned earlier, they needed a supplemental heat, right? Okay, so we have here the table of the proper temperature according to their age. And as you can notice, the temperature decreases as the chicks mature. Okay, so we have here the diagram of the behavior of the chicks under brooders. Okay, that if the temperature is too high, chicks make no noise. Chicks pant, head and wings droop. They are away from brooder. Okay, if the temperature is too low, chicks crowd to brooder, but they make noise. And if the temperature is correct, then chicks evenly spread. Okay, and if uh, this distribution requires investigation, influenced by draft, uneven light distribution, or external noises. Okay. Next, we move on good quality feed. Okay, of course, you should give them good quality feed. This is important also to put their digestive system in place. Okay. Next, number 4, fresh and clean drinking water. Okay. You should provide them fresh and clean water immediately upon the arrival of the chicks. Okay, proper ventilation. They need a proper ventilation as chicks are fast breathing and fast growing animals, so they needed a constant flow of air. Okay, number 6, adequate floor space. Okay, this is minimum brooding space requirement is 0.5 to 0.75 feet per bird. Okay, number 7, adequate lighting facilities. Okay, they provide them 24-hour continuous light for 2 days, so they are encouraged to keep close to the heat source and to the feed and water as well. Okay, number 8, proper sanitation. Okay, cleanliness and dryness of the flooring can prevent the chicks from parasites and pathogenic microorganisms. Okay, number 9, adequate protection. Enclose the brooder house with materials that are sturdy enough to prevent entry of predators and stress stimulators. Okay, so naturally, chicks are brood by their mother hen. But for mass production and commercial purposes, providing of artificial heat is much more convenient. That is why brooding management and artificial heat is introduced. Okay, so we have here different types of artificial source of heat. Okay, we have electricity, liquid petroleum gas, and charcoal. Okay, these sources of heat depends on the availability on the area. Okay, next. Okay, brooding management. Brooder house should be cleaned, disinfect, and dried 24 hours before the arrival of the chicks. Okay, all the equipment such as drinkers and feeders must be ready. Okay, so as you can see in the picture, these are the green ones. These are the usual drinkers and feeders. Okay, it is also important to put an insulation material on the flooring of the brooder house. Okay, like chick paper. There are also some alternative materials like newspapers, rice hull, hay can also be used. The purpose of this insulation material is not just for the protection of the chicks from hard flooring, but most importantly, to absorb moist from their droppings and other moist sources like spilled water from their drinkers. This is to protect their feet from getting wet for a long period because they can easily catch cold through their feet. Okay, and regularly change their paper mattings or other insulation materials to avoid the accumulation of moist and dirt. Okay, next, growing the pullets. Okay, first is the lighting management. Light hours must be less than the threshold photo period of 11 to 12 hours. What does this mean? Okay, pullets also need lighting management, but not as much as brooders do. Okay, and this is not for the purpose of giving them heat, but this lighting thing is to alter their age at maturity, sexual maturity. Okay, light hours must be less than the threshold photo period, which is 11 to 12 hours. Okay, which means the pullet should be exposed to the light, which is the a combination of the daylight and the artificial light to reach the required hours of exposure. Okay, so the very basic reason or idea of this lighting management of pullets is that if they are exposed to the light more than the threshold, okay, chances are they would lay eggs earlier and will lead to smaller sizes of egg produce. And if they are not provided with artificial light during season or months of shorter daytime, then chances are their sexual maturity will be delayed and the production of eggs as well. Next is monitoring body weight. Okay. Their weight should be monitored regularly to maintain the mean flock weight. Okay. This is also one of the bases for you to know if your flock is being fed properly and managed properly. Okay. Next is transfer of pullets into the laying house. Transferring of pullets on laying cages 1 month before the onset of egg production is essential to avoid the habit of eating their egg. Okay, next, cannibalism among growing chicks. Causes of cannibalism are the following. Okay, imbalanced rations, overcrowding and insufficient feeding and drinking spaces, extended period without feed and water, poor ventilation, excessive heat and too much light in the growing house. Okay, we move back. You can see in the picture, okay, the chick is being debeaked. Okay, this is the reason. This is the reason why debeaking is practiced among poultry farms. Okay, it is to ensure that their flock would not develop the habit of cannibalism. Okay.
Hello everyone, for our next topic we have the management of laying flags. So from the word itself, management, which is manage, it is the process of controlling or dealing with something. For example, for our laying flag. So you can see from the picture here, we have the picture 1 and picture 2. In picture 1, it is more harder or it will take more time to collect the eggs. While in picture 2, it is more convenient because they are in a cage and it's more easier to collect the eggs. Next, we have the light management of layer. So it increases the length of light when the pullets attain its minimum body weight. Minimum body weight depends on the strain of the layers. Provide a total of 16 hours light to get the maximum response from the lighting program. During the laying period, the length of the light may be increased, but it should never be reduced. From the 13th day of light before the pullet reaches sexual maturity, provide a 30-minute light increment per week until 16 hours of light per day is achieved. So, for example, like this, in 16 to 17 weeks of age of our layer, the natural light will be enough for them because it is the time when they grow. It's their growing period, and around 18 to 19 weeks, we can then add an hour for the lighting, 12 hours for the natural light, then 1 hour for um, artificial light. Then every week, pwede na tayong magdagdag ng 30 minutes uh, para sa artificial light. Yan. Sabi nga dyan, provide a 30-minute light increment per week until 16 hours of light per day is achieved. Yan. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's the natural light, and around 6 p.m., doon na natin i-open yung ating artificial light. And as you can see here, we have our lighting program. We have the lighting option 1, option 2. And we also have the flock age, light intensity lux, and photo period. In the flock age, that's the age of our layers, and for the light intensity, the light we use, and for the hours of light per day, it's the light when they are exposed. And And next is we have the management is for the production of high quality eggs. So, yan. Keep nest, cage, and egg roll clean. Clean egg trays and other containers daily. Collect eggs at least 3 times daily or as often as possible. So, of course, keep nest clean, cage, egg trays, collect eggs in the tray or in the egg roll. Of course, to avoid contamination. And we also have here is to classify eggs according to the standard size immediately. Separate dirty eggs, the soil, and cracked eggs. Again, for contamination. And keep eggs in cool storage room around 10 degrees Celsius to 15.16 degrees Celsius with relative humidity of 70%. Yan. Makikita natin siya dyan sa picture. Kung paano natin i-separate yung mga eggs. And we also have the minimizing feed wastage. The feeder should not be filled more than 1 to 3 of its depth to prevent feed wastage. Use the right size of feeder for the age of the chickens. Each feeder should have a lid guard about 1 to 2 centimeter to prevent feed from being scratched out or break out into the floor. Avoid water spillage to prevent mold formation that may lead to feed spoilage. Check water regularly for possible leaks or overflow. Construct layer house in such a way that it will minimize or prevent the entry of birds and rain. It's funny because I started growing some chicks. It's called a 45-day-old chick. Then yan, natutuwa lang ako kasi the feeder, pag nagpapakain ako. And next is we have the flock replacement program. So layers are kept for egg production for one laying, which is 80 weeks. However, if management can be extended for more than one laying cycle, 100 weeks, flock replacement. Yeah. Reduction about 20% in egg production is occurred annually after the first laying year. Start a new batch of pullets for 6 months before the schedule of disposal of old flocks. And we also have the culling. Culling removal of unprofitable and unproductive birds, sick, non-laying, poor producer, mis-sex, or male chicks that happen to be in the flock. So of course, our layer, it should, it's supposed to lay eggs, but if there's a male chick, syempre, we need to cull it. And carefully catch or handle the birds gently during culling to avoid the excitement of other birds. As much as possible, culling should be done in afternoon around 1 p.m. when most of the birds lay egg. And so you can see here in the table 5, here is a characteristic that will differentiate the good from a poor layer. We have the physical characteristic, good layer, and poor or non-laying. So of course, for example, for our layers in their eyes, we can observe the good layer from poor or non-laying. We can observe it from their eyes. If their eyes are bright, then it's a good layer, and if it's dull, then it's a poor non-laying. Nutrition and nutrients requirements of egg-type chicken. It is the process of obtaining the food necessary for its growth. Yan, food nourishment. Providing the right nutrition is important for poultry growth, production, and health. Different energy requirements are required, depending on factors including bird age and production status. Providing adequate nutrition is important so that the bird is able to achieve its productive potential and also for it is to sustain health. And yan, nutrition and nutrients requirements of egg type. The water should be available at all times. The water requirements of the bird should meet the specification water quality in poultry in terms of microbial count, acidity, hardness, amount, and natural occurring chemicals. Yan, we also have the non-nutritive feed additives. These additives promote health, feed efficiency, feed stability, and product quality. Non-nutritive feed additives are ito yung mga tinitake nila pero hindi nakakatulong sa nutrition nila. For example, we also have the pigmenters or antibiotics. For pigmenters, it enhances coloration of egg yolks. And for antibiotics, it is not only for antimicrobial but also a growth promoting agent and improvement in performance. So sabi ko nga, hindi siya nakakatulong sa further nutrition but it improves some of their characteristic or in other ways. Yan. For example, yung antibiotics, if the layer take it, it is for antimicrobial and growth promoting agent. And it's also improvement in performance. And we also have the list of nutrients recommendation for egg type chicken. So for nutrient, we have the unit, starter, and these are nutrient for our layer. Yan. We have for the starter, grower, developer layer 1, layer 2, and yan. These are medicines, or should I say nutrients, that they should be taking in order to have a healthy layers. And that's all. Thank you.
Nutrition plays a major role in the performance of layer birds. A proper feed management is the most important practice to increase productivity and to get egg production at the right time. Next. Feeding, starting, and growing birds. Upon the arrival, make sure that the availability of water and feeds can be easily accessed by the chicks. It is best for the chicks to feed and drink water immediately upon arrival to prevent dehydration and to allow proper gut development, promote better health and growth of the birds. For the first 6 weeks, for the first 6 weeks of brooding, chicks must be fed ad libitum, but for the first 3 days, feed should be restricted to prevent vent pasting, wherein this can be avoided by providing some cracked corn or wheat as part of their first feed. Chickens at different stages require different feed formulations. The birds should be offered starter diet from day 1 to 6 weeks of age, a grower diet from 6 to 12 weeks of age, and a developer diet from 12 to 18 weeks. Pullets should not be underfed or overfed because the main goal for the pullets is to feed them to attain high uniformity of weight or size, a body composition, a proper skeletal development at the point of lay, which are requisites to optimal number and size of eggs, and also to their performance. Next. Pre-lay calcium nutrition and pullets. A calcium in a pre-lay diet in pullets are necessary, especially when they are about to start to lay. A proper development of the medullary bone is a fundamental aspect of pullet nutrition. The build-up of a medullary bone reserve is sensitive to dietary calcium level during the growing stage. The bone serves as a calcium source during the laying period when dietary calcium is low, especially during the period of shell formation. That is why dietary calcium is needed to suffice the nutrients needed. A pre-lay diet is beneficial because it increases parts of nutrient amounts that is needed by the chicken when it starts to lay eggs. A pre-lay diet is being given to pullet at age of 16 to 18 weeks that contains a 17% of crude protein, a 2,850 of kilocalorie, and a 2% of calcium. And an increase of 1% linoleic acid and methionine is also needed in the diet for early egg size. These nutrients provide strength and energy to produce eggs when they are laying. Next. Feeding layers. Next. Feeding layers. The current practice of feeding layers is phase feeding, using layer rations 1 and 2. A layer ration 1 is usually fed to layers at the start of egg laying, up to 5 months to 6 months of the laying period. It contains a higher crude protein of 17 to 18% and a 3 to 3.5% of calcium. Compared to layer ration 1, layer ration 2 is usually fed after the first 6 months or when the layer feed reach post-peak production. A ration 2 contains lower crude protein with a 16 to 17%, but higher calcium of 3.5 to 5%. As birds grow, they need more calcium for egg formulation due to the increase in egg weight, which raises the amount of calcium required for a strong shell. The laying egg type chicken should be fed the following daily amount of nutrients: A ration of 100 grams per bird with a dietary specification for layer 1 will suffice for these requirements. Next, feeding for egg size and shell quality. With early small egg size being undesirable for market, a pre-post feeding can be practiced. This is done by withdrawing feed or feeding low nutrient dense diet at the time of sexual maturity. With this, it stimulates greater big size when production resumes. If you need to adjust the average egg size and eggshell quality that your flock is currently laying, then changing the bird's diet will probably be the last thing you do. Egg size is influenced by the bird's intake of these nutrients, while if other nutrients that affect egg size are given in adequate amounts, an increase in one or more of these dietary factors above recommended intake will tend to increase early egg size. As for the shell quality, for it to improve, adding a oyster shell or limestone grits in their feed and vitamin C on their water should be considered. The amount of salt in the water should also be monitored as it also alleviates shell problems. Next, feeding layers to counteract heat stress. Heat stress happens when birds can't balance the heat they produce and the heat they lose. If it's not managed, it may result in reduced growth, decreased egg production, a lower egg quality, and may be detrimental to their health. But making changes to their diet can help. A failure to manage heat stress in layer results in poor layer production performance, and it should be remembered that older birds and heavier birds are more sensitive to heat stress than younger and lighter birds. Here are some nutritional strategies you can use to help manage manage heat stress. First is to increase feed density. When it's hot, chicken eat less and drink more. You can compensate by increasing diet density to help them maintain nutrient intake. High calorie feeds may help improve performance also. Provides Provide hot fats and oils to their feed. Such ingredients produces less heat increment and also increases palatability of the diet. Adding amino acids and reducing crude protein to their diet. Providing a well-balanced amino acids supply and moderate levels of crude protein intake can help maintain energy loss and help chickens cope with heat stress. Supplementing them with vitamins and electrolytes. Maintaining electrolyte balance and adding sodium bicarbonate to the diet or drinking water increases the levels of vitamin A, D3, and E, which helps alleviate heat stress problem. Lastly, it is also better to feed the birds during cooler times of the day because they intend to eat more when temperature is lower. Next, phase feeding laying birds. Phase feeding is performed by reducing protein and amino acid intakes as the bird progresses through a laying cycle. This practice is based on the fact that as birds get older, their feed intake increases while their egg production decreases. As such, reducing nutrient concentration can be beneficial and economical. Change in dietary protein density, methionine level, and phosphorus should be done gradually in order to not affect the production and quality of eggs. Next, feeding for the prevention of fatty liver syndrome. A fatty liver syndrome in laying hens is a metabolic disease that can potentially reduce egg production while compromising the health status of the bird. This is due to the imbalance of protein intake such as low protein high energy diet. This can be prevented by adding lipotropic factors to the diet and an increase of 1 to 2% of crude protein, and also providing more fat than carbohydrates as energy source causes less stress on the part of the liver. Next, feeding for the prevention of cage layer fatigue and bone breakage. An avian osteoporosis is a metabolic bone disease and orthopedic condition which occurs commonly in commercial laying hens. It is often referred to as cage layer fatigue. Birds suffering from cage layer fatigue become lame and are reluctant to stand in the cage. This is observed around the time of peak egg production. The same manifestation can be seen in old hens and worse bone breakages. The formation of the eggshells require large amounts of calcium. If hens do not receive enough calcium in their diet each time they lay an egg, calcium will be depleted from their bones instead. The condition can be made worse by metabolic deficiencies related to as other nutrients as well, such as inadequate or unbalanced quantities of phosphorus or vitamin D in the diet. By ensuring adequate levels of calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D3, and also adding 300 milligrams per liter of fluoride to the water or diet improves bone strength and prevent osteoporosis and bone breakage.
So, good morning everyone. My report is the disease prevention and control for the poultry production. Next is the most economical and ideal method to minimize losses due to disease is only through prevention. No cure is capable to heal any kind of disease that was already developed in the animal. So through prevention, you can achieve proper management, proper feeding, proper housing, strict sanitation, and effective vaccination program. The next is, now if precautionary measures are observed, there are times when communicable diseases will strike the farm. When disease outbreaks occur, consult a veterinarian immediately. First is the use of drugs and antibiotics with proper and immediate disease diagnosis. Now, as you can see in the picture, the one side has a glove using before and after vaccinating a hen. Then the other side is using only its hands. You don't know if it uses a disinfectant spray to use in puncturing their skin. The next problem is regarding in using antibiotics. Some of the farmers uses misproper use of drugs, like giving them let's see, resistance to skin diseases, and they will give them penicillins because it's the cheaper one. Next is the sustained protection of the farm. So sustaining protection is to follow vaccination program schedules. They must be strictly followed, and it must be done systematically to minimize post-vaccination reaction. Vaccination itself is stress for the animal, and reaction ranging from decreases in feed intake or egg production to increase in mortality rate. To avoid severe vaccination reaction, avoid handling them in a hard manner, and minimize the grabbing, feeding, and cleaning their area. Next is this dosage should be used accurately, like the proper route of administration in vaccination. The next, the antibiotics. The uses them for vitamins, mineral supplementation, and they should be given at least 2 days before and 3 days before after vaccination. Next is the vaccination tips. Now here, follow strictly. Now strictly means this is mandatory to follow the vaccination program even if though your schedule is fully loaded. Now next is the purchase of vaccine from reliable resources. Check the expiration date. Never use expired vaccine. Vaccine should be always be kept refrigerated temperature. And next is the follow strictly the vaccination direction. Some of here are the They use vaccine as normal vitamin supplementation for the animal, which is wrong. Next is do not vaccinate when there is a disease outbreak from the farm, such as chronic diseases to the animal, like CRD, fowl-pox, influenza, coryza, or coccidiosis. The immune response is slow and the birds may die of the reaction to the vaccination. The fifth one is check the immune response titer. Now, here, you can use the hemagglutination inhibition test that is conducted in most diagnostic laboratories. If the revaccination birds titer is low or zero, the test is best way to determine if the birds are adequately protected or not. Some vaccines may be ineffective due to misshading, improper storage, or to expiration date. The number 6 are administer the vaccine within 1 hour after the reconstitution. If used after 1 hour, the desired protection may not be attained. So vaccines are limited if not properly administered. The seventh one is immediately burn empty vials or bottles of leftover reconstituted vaccine after using. These vaccines are not dead, the reconstituted one. The organisms may revert to virulent form under natural condition if spread on the ground, which may develop for further in the future. Next is avoid unnecessary stress on the birds, particularly the vaccination time, because vaccine itself is stress already to the animal. Weak birds may develop vaccination reactions and are easily susceptible to other diseases. Antidepressant supplements are also recommended to give to them, multivitamins and antimicrobial mineral preparation to feed or drink water for them at least 2 days before and 3 days after the vaccination. Next is consult the veterinarian immediately if your pharmacy already has a problem due to schedules and vaccinations program. Next is the useful information on vaccines. Vaccines do not provide a foolproof assurance of immunity or protection against a disease. Although a degree of protection is actually confirmed, the possibility exists that immunity can be overwhelmed by massive exposure to virulent field strain or different strain of the causative organism. There is no substitute for strict sanitation and good management. Next is do not confer instant protection. Immunity develops gradually and birds are not adequately protected until about 2 weeks after effective vaccination. During the first week after vaccination, birds can contract diseases with relative ease due to vaccination stress. Next is the level of immunity or protection provided by vaccination depends upon several factors, namely potency of the vaccine, amount administered, the route of vaccination, capability of vaccinated birds to respond to the vaccine. And vaccines are quite fragile. Their potency can deteriorate with improper storage, mishandling, or misuse. Live virus vaccine can be easily destroyed by heat, inert materials, and chemicals. Example, disinfectants, antiseptics, detergents, chlorine, iron, zinc, and copper. Next, all vaccination equipment should be properly cleaned. Then, weaker vaccines are safer to use for young chicks. With older birds, stronger vaccine may be used like Lasotana strain. And the route of administration also influences the level of immunity. Generally, it regarded the vaccination via drinking water, aerosol, or less than intramuscular, intranasal, or wing web administration. Next is The duration of protection immunity varies with the type of disease, with the type of vaccine. The level of immunity conferred by such vaccination may be administered repeatedly, annually, or weekly throughout the productive life. And vaccination is the pre-exposure method disease control. It is not intended to cure birds that have already been exposed to this disease. Vaccination may aggravate the condition, so you should always check the animal's health. Next is guidelines for the prevention of infectious diseases in poultry farms. Now here, raise only the healthy and vigorous stocks. Immediately cull sickly birds and dispose them by burning, although it has a problem with animal welfare health factor. Next is the provide birds with nutritional balance ratio and cool fresh drinking water at all times. Group birds of the same age and those given the same vaccine in the same pen. Have a sound vaccination and flock health program. Follow strictly the vaccination schedules. Maintain clean surroundings in the farm. Provide comfortable housing. Avoid overcrowding. Clean and disinfect building and equipment thoroughly after each use because there may be developed broad spectrum of diseases if not to do so. Next is dispose dead birds properly by burning or boiling or burying them. It's either the animal disease has already affected other herds or animals in the farm. As much as possible, only flockmen should go inside the laying houses. They should avoid contact with possible diseases carriers like gamecocks, native chickens, and other fowls to prevent introduction of virulent virus into the farms. Visitors, delivery trucks, or pets can also infect the chickens, and they should stay off the production area. Next is the buildings and farms must be fenced as part of the biosecurity measures to prevent entry of stray animals, scavengers, wild birds, because they serve as carriers of some poultry diseases and nuisance to general comfort of the flock. Next is you should provide comfortable quarters. Overcrowding, lack of feeding, and watering space may predispose the chicken to the diseases. Next, you should provide poultry houses with adequate light because it stimulates the feeding and sexual maturation for them. And you should provide also, they should also provide clean drinking water for them. If possible, practice all in and all out method of operation and allow 30 days rest period between batches in the flock. And purchase stock from reputable hatcheries because some are mixed flocks, like some are gamecocks and broilers for the chicks. Next is quarantine new stock for at least 2 weeks if other flocks are being kept in the farm. Then next is control external parasites like lice, mites using insecticides, sprays, dip, or dust. Drain farm or stagnant pools of damp areas to deprive blood-sucking insects of breeding and hiding places. And most importantly, maintain the good production and health records in the farm. Next is the characteristic of an ideal disinfectant. First is they should be highly germicidal, non-toxic to man and animals, effective in small amounts like drops or few sprays, non-corroding and non-staining in the area. does not leave undesirable residues in the place, and it should be soluble in the water, capable of penetrating materials, associated with pungent odors, and readily available and expensive. Next is, these are the disinfectants usually used in the farm, like alcohol, creosol, halogens, chlorine, soda ash, glutaraldehyde, and soaps and detergents.
Hi, hello. Let me discuss to you about manure management. Next. Manure handling. It is the least favorite activity in poultry production, or I mean egg poultry production. Because it takes time to prepare, or manage the manure or the organic waste of the chicken. Um, in terms of proper utilization and pollution control, manure management is as opposed to manure disposal. Um, and For your information, manure management is can be profitable in poultry production. Um, because some farmers or crop growers and fish pond managers or owners, they use dried manure as a fertilizer. Next. um, Pointers in manure management. These pointers should be kept, or always remember in poultry production. First, keeping manure dry. It is the most important part of manure management, because keeping manure dry is it reduces the odor and flies. Because if your manure is wet, we all know that more flies, or the odor becomes unpleasant to our nose and to our health. Then, and also dried manure is more expensive than the wet manure. So almost crop farmers and fish pond growers prefer dried manure than wet manure. Next. As I have said a while ago, manure is both as a fertilizer for both crop growers or crop farmers and fish pond owners, because the organic waste that is being produced of chicken is has high as has a high potential in fish pond production and farmland. Next. And for the management in manure, cleaning layer houses is a must. We should always keep our layer clean to avoid or to prevent disease to occur in our production. And last is, insecticide should not use in manure. It will destroy the insects that controls flies. It kills the insects that is present in the manure, that may kill flies. And reestablishing the insects that is present in manure, uh, it may take time, or some time to produce or reestablish. Thank you.